Good morning. This lecture is how to properly format or set up a document for a block-style business letter using Google Docs. If you'll note that the document setup had a number of criteria. The first criteria was that the orientation was to be in portrait. And as you can see, by default, Google Docs is in the portrait mode for orientation. The margins, left, right, and bottom, were supposed to be at 1 inch, and the top is to be at 2 inches. By default, all four are at 1 inch. So for us to properly go in and set the top margin from 1 inch to 2 inches, I need to go to the File and Page Setup. And here I will notice that there's our portrait, which is by default. Then the top needs to go from 1 inch to 2 inches, and then once again the bottom, left, and right stay at 1 inch, and I select OK. The other thing that we need to pay attention to is line spacing. It's supposed to be single, no additional spaces or spacing before or after paragraphs. For us to change that, by default it is at 1.15. So to change it from 1.15 to single space, we need to go to the Format menu, go down to Line Spacing, and once again, by default, you can see it's at 1.15, and we want to change that to a single space. Last but not least is the font, and then the size of the font. The size of the font is supposed to be 12 point. By default, Google Docs is at 11, so we'll want to change that from 11 till 12. And the block style business letter should be in Times New Roman, and once again, default for Google Docs is Arial. So I'll click on the down arrow and then scroll down to Times New Roman. So once again, in summary, let's take a look at the orientation. Should be portrait. The top margin should be the top margin should be 2 inches, left, right, and the bottom all at 1 inch. Both of those can be changed from File, Page Setup. Once again, there's the portrait orientation. There's the bottom, left, and right at 1 inch, and the top at 2. We talked about line spacing. It should be at 1. By default, on Google Docs, it's 1.15. To change that, we go to the Format menu, go to Line Spacing, and select the single, which I've done. And last but not least is the font and the size. Once again, by default, it was at 11. We changed it here to 12. And by default, the font was Arial, and we changed it to Times New Roman. Now we are ready to create our block-style business letter. I hope this lecture has been beneficial on how to properly format a blank Google Doc prepared for a block-style business letter. Have a great day.